Hello and welcome back to the Eye Test FC. We're here with an all Arsenal lineup today to talk about our season review. We're going to cover all things Arsenal, how the season started, what's going on behind the scenes, who's leaving, who's coming in, what happened with the board, everything. And to help me talk about that, I have Lakshay, an Arsenal fan. Do you want a quick introduction?
Hi guys, I'm Lakshay. I It's my first time on the show, so thank you for having me. I've been an Arsenal fan all my life, ever since I've started watching football, and yeah,
20 painful years? Or is it a bit less?
a long, long time. Yes.
Yeah. So look, man, we're gonna do an honest review. We have spoken quite a bit of football even outside the podcast, like when the mic wasn't on. We have a WhatsApp group where we keep speaking about a lot of stuff after wins, after losses. So let's keep it honest. Let's be reflective of what the season is. And I want to ask you personally, right? Like if you were to take yourself back without the benefit of hindsight, at the end of last season, we had an amazing run. We lost one game from Jan to May. And the last game of the season against Everton, we scored in the 90th minute. We won that game, but we fell 2 points short of the Premier League, the closest we've ever been. And how did you feel, going into the summer?
Obviously devastated. Devastation was
Yeah.
one of the things. I was pretty depressed for like a couple of weeks, and then yeah, just like anyone else would do or say, okay, you gotta let that go, let that be in the past, and like just look forward to the next season, and that's precisely what we did. That's precisely what everyone did, in my opinion, because uh, and no jokes, everyone, all of the Arsenal fans went in with a lot of hope into the new season, thinking, okay, fine, a couple of signings here and there. This is me talking before the transfer window,
Yeah.
so uh, a lot of hopefulness was there in everyone's eyes, thinking, yeah, okay, this is going to be the next season is going to be our season because, of course, we got the news that Klopp was leaving, so everyone just instantly ruled out Liverpool at that minute.
Yeah.
And obviously we were doing well. And of course we all hoped for the best, like in our terms best, because we always wanted City to fuck
Yeah.
about a little bit.
Yeah.
And after 4 consecutive seasons winning the Premier League, you obviously have that little bit of hope that okay,
Yeah.
yeah, they are going to fumble, which exactly did happen. And it was all hope, 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 hope. But
Hope. Yeah.
I guess it's the hope that kills you.
Yeah, that's the a perfect way to summarize life of an Arsenal fan, right? Like in some ways, this is like group therapy session as well. But
I mean, yeah.
but what did you feel were like the major takeaways after the summer? Like you were saying, the team had to strengthen in one or two areas, but I remember that interview that Edu gave when it was dark at London Colney on deadline day, talking about Sterling and the fact that he wasn't in Arsenal's plans. Like, what were your takeaways from the board? Let's not go to the players just yet. Just the board. Like, what happened there?
See, ideally, I I'd believe that the board knew what they wanted. The board knew what areas of the team needed strengthening. Um, a few positions, obviously, with the back line, with the midfield, with the forward line, and we ended up strengthening areas which needed strengthening, obviously. But the biggest issue was us not getting a number nine.
Yeah, it feels
It
almost
was it
parallel,
was
right?
it was clear, and not just about getting in the players, but also letting go of a few. We all knew Nketiah was there. Nketiah had to leave because yeah, he's not getting the time that he deserves, even though he's a homegrown talent. But looking at his trajectory, which had to go upward, it was the right time for him to leave. So he ended up leaving. A couple of other players also ended up leaving, and It just felt like we instead of
Y-
strengthening or like getting that depth in, we sort of let the depth go,
Yeah.
and we suffered. We
It's
suffered.
very true. Because every time we sold a player, like Nketiah, we didn't replace him. And that seemed like mind boggling to me, right? Like you let Nketiah Nelson go and you get Sterling. And I would imagine you clear the wages to get someone
I mean,
like pay.
technically, the board at that time, I'd say the board knew what they were doing by replacing Reece Nelson and getting Sterling in, but it's
Yeah.
Sterling,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. So we've already spoken about players a little bit, right? And we know about the summer. It was Calafiori, Merino, Neto, and Sterling on deadline day. Now, I understand that's underwhelming in hindsight, but take yourself back to last season. Liverpool didn't sign anyone apart from Chiesa. They were trying for Zubimendi. They didn't get him. Man City just got back Gundogan. I can't remember who else they got, if any. None of them really strengthened their starting 11. So, in a year where City, Arsenal, and Liverpool did not strengthen their team, and Arsenal did a little bit with Calafiori and Merino, it still seemed like, to me at least, that Arsenal had the edge going into the season. Um, but what do you think, with hindsight, happened?
see, you're absolutely right. I think it was a common belief in all of the Arsenal fan base that we had a better transfer window than majority of the competitors that we had at that time, or even currently. I wouldn't consider Chelsea or United or all of those teams as competitors.
No
No
offense,
disrespect to them,
just
but
fact. Yeah,
they were not competing for the league in
yeah,
the previous season. So ideally, our top two competitors at that time were City and Liverpool.
yeah,
And Liverpool not strengthening their team, and City also bringing in, I'd like to say, deadwood players in Gundogan and I think nobody
I
else.
can't remember
I don't.
actually.
Yeah, I can't
Savinho
remember.
actually.
And
Yeah,
okay, Savinho was a good signing,
yeah.
and if you look at it throughout the season about what he did, but ideally, I believe we had a better transfer window by strengthening the left hand side at the back in Calafiori. Of course, we needed an upgrade to Zinchenko, who has been a cone for us in the past couple of seasons, and Merino to add some depth in the midfield, because as we all know, like the season prior to that, we did suffer when Partey wasn't playing, or when Rice was not playing.
Yeah.
Rice, I believe, played most of their games, but in those one or two games that he wasn't there, or either one of the two players weren't there, we were suffering. So it made a lot of sense to get in another midfielder.
Yeah.
It just seemed like it would work out for us. It just seemed like that, and all of a sudden it just
Didn't.
didn't. We didn't have a good start to the season, and
Yeah.
so on and so
So
forth.
let's talk about the season, right? Like, and let's talk about how we played on the pitch, because while you said that we strengthened, I don't think that any of those players were signed to come straight into the 11. Maybe Calafiori, but I don't see Marino. In a full strength Arsenal team, it would be Partey, Rice, Odegaard as the midfield three. So, how do you think Arsenal tactically evolved this season? Because, man, for me, forget the stats. The eye test tells me that it was just boring to watch, right? It was very
I
robotic.
mean, mm, see, I don't think it was difficult to watch. Yeah, obviously, not too many goals from open play, relying a little bit more than usual on set pieces for goals. Um, See, all of those things are just a part of football, in my opinion. And you're talking about it being robotic or like boring to watch. Man, each team must have a system, and the best idea to play football needs to be coming from the manager, and the manager must direct players to know where each of them are at any given point of time on the pitch.
Yeah.
And that is something that Arsenal knew. That is something each and every player on the team sheet knew. Even the midfielders need to know where each of their players are. If wingers are supposed to drop in, if fullbacks are supposed to come inside. All of these things are well and
Drilled. Yeah.
predetermined. They are very very drilled, and that's how it needs to be.
Okay. So I understand your perspective on this. I do have to say that under Arteta, like for the last 3 years, the team has been quite well drilled, right? And if you look 2 seasons back or last season, it felt like we were well drilled, but we were still creating chaos attacking in that attacking side of play. This season, we seemed well drilled defensively, like nobody's arguing, but when it came to that attacking third, we were just very pass the ball back. Let's not go into the box. And
It
you know
was
it
more about the control, I believe. We had more control. We had more control of the ball throughout the season. If you go watch back all the games, or even a few games, there were times where, okay, if we're playing against a Liverpool or a City side, we knew that, okay, yeah, we had to dig deep, stay back, play that shitty type of football. But if that's what it takes to win, or in in hindsight not lose the game, I'd do that
true.
over
True. I do
I'd
do
take
that
the
over
point over a
losing.
loss.
I do
Yeah,
do
I'd
that
take
over
the point
losing
over
five
a
one.
loss.
Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong. I'm not. I don't mean City away or Liverpool away. Right. I'm talking about Ipswich at home. I'm talking about West Ham away from home. I'm talking about like those kind of games. Fulham. I'm talking about games where look, in the last 3 4 years under Arteta, we have done very well against the other top five, top six teams. We have not performed well against your relegation mid-table teams, right? And against those teams, we were struggling to break those low blocks defensively, and it just felt a bit laborious this season. So, do you feel like there was something else that went
Missing.
that was missing, but also on the other side, something that went well, like in the way we played?
Um, See, about missing, uh, see, it's all correlated to each other. If you're talking attacking, defensive-minded football, yeah. What was missing was that number nine, because majority of the times we were looking at going down the flanks and putting the ball into the box to maybe a Havertz,
Yeah.
or maybe a Declan Rice arriving late in the box, or a Marino coming in late, or like just dropping back a little bit. Um, yeah, that was what was lacking. But and also the flair that Odegaard provides, the creativity that he provides, yeah, that was missing, because it's just sort of become known to each and every player or each and every defender in the league that Odegaard would not use his right foot.
Yeah.
He would not take he would not take that long range shot. The coaching staff would have told him, yeah, like, yeah, you need to work on that, you need to start rebuilding that, and sort of trust yourself on those one-on-one take-ons, or even playing the ball, or even just taking a wild shot from outside the box. Because if you go back and look at the number of times we have taken a shot from outside the box, it has resulted in a goal like 50% of the times. It's just that these players do not take those chances, and they get into really, really good positions.
Yeah.
But um, this was like something that was missing in my opinion. And if we're talking about something that was done well, it was it was that we didn't concede as much from open play. Our our players did really well in the transitions. Miles Lewis Kelly, big mention to him, coming in deep, coming inside, playing. He was just taking the pitch on. He was just covering the ground and making it his own ground, his own pitch. And man, the confidence in that young kid is unbelievable.
Yeah,
It
incredible.
was unbelievable.
Yeah, incredible.
But overall, defensively, I believe that we did a lot better than the previous seasons as well.
Yeah, I think on Miles Lewis Kelly, I saw an article this morning that Real Madrid want to sign him, and that just says everything, right? Like, but one criticism that Arteta always had, throughout his Arsenal tenure was he didn't integrate youth well. And it was so nice to see both Wanyeri and Lewis Kelly, maybe because of injuries, were integrated, had a good run of games, and performed really well. Like, people like Arsenal fans now see Wanyeri as a legitimate understudy to Saka or Odegaard, right? Depending on how you want him to play. And Lewis Kelly, people go like, yeah, Lewis Kelly can start against every team in the league. So it's just crazy for two teenagers to perform the way they have, and also incredible for two teenagers to come out of one academy at the same time. That just isn't normal, right?
No, it's unbelievable. Who knew that injuries would provide two stars in our team at the same time in one season? It was just unbelievable. With both of them, they got a decent run of games. I'd wanted to see Waneri play a lot more. Yeah, and I understand where it was coming from the manager as well, not throwing that young gun in the deep end so early on in his career. But if he had done it with Waneri, I'd want to believe that maybe he would have, not maybe, he would definitely perform better than Sterling in the number of games that he
Yeah,
played.
definitely. Yeah.
And we all saw what Miles did throughout the season.
Oh man.
As soon whenever he was getting his chances, those darting runs inside, those risky balls that you would
Yeah.
say, playing those risky through balls, and it all paid off. It's just about taking the risk,
Yeah.
and the kids were taking the risk because yeah, they want to cement their place in the starting lineup.
Right. Like Miles and Ethan played a lot because of the elephant in the room that we haven't spoken about, and that is half our team being injured. Right, we've had the most injuries this season. The squad building in the summer, as we said, did not help. And frankly speaking, the team has done really well. I'm really proud of how the team has performed, considering the amount of injuries we have had. Right, it's not normal to not have any senior recognized striker for half the season, to not have Saka for 6 months, to not have Odegaard for 3 months, uh, Tomiyasu for the whole year. The list goes on and on, right? So, considering that context with injuries, which is an intangible and uncontrollable at the start of the season, I think I'm pretty pleased with how the team performed, right? And I think if I were to ask you, and I'm conscious that this can go into a rant, but do you feel that there were other uncontrollables this season, apart from injuries and just squad building?
See, just starting off at that injuries topic, there is a sort of a rant, a sort of complaint that I have, and that starts off with players playing out of position. That is something that shouldn't be happening at any point in time. Yeah, you call players versatile, you call players, yeah, players who can play in different positions and everything. Understandable, perfectly understandable. But players playing out of position was something that was just unacceptable for us.
Yep.
It did not work for us. Few examples were Partey playing out of position. It cost us. It cost us every single time when he was playing out of position. You
Merino.
had other players, Merino playing out of position. Yeah, Merino playing out of position was a one golden star, I would say. It just worked out for us.
But
But
you're right because he wasn't signed to be a number nine, right? He was signed to play as depth for Declan Rice, not to
exactly,
replace Jesus and Havertz, right?
exactly. Coming back to that rant topic that you started off, the referees did not help us. It was it was Arsenal being that fucking example. We were made an example of for the entire Premier League. It was red cards, new rules coming in. It's unreal. It just doesn't make any sense. You're talking about time wasting, restarts, delayed restarts. Like, how does it make sense? These were
Yeah.
these were very prevalent in the previous seasons. And yeah, okay, if you are getting new rules into place, why is Arsenal being the target? Why
Yeah.
is Arsenal being that team, or why are Arsenal players being those players who are made an example out of? And right after Arsenal get red cards and Arsenal's games or Arsenal's points are being costed, you come back the next game saying, okay, we are going to keep in mind that these things are not supposed to happen. The referees need to see the context of the game and only then show the red cards or yellow cards. It doesn't make any sense. You've already cost us some points, and now we need to go back trying to compensate for it by playing some other way, which doesn't make any sense.
Right. So for those listening, right, like we want to talk about referees because, as Lakshay said, if Partey plays right back and makes a mistake, right, we speak about it because it costs us maybe a point or two. And if you're doing really a thorough, complete, and honest analysis of the whole season, we have to talk about factors that cost Arsenal points. And in this season, statistically, the referees have cost Arsenal points more than any other team in the league. The ball in play or time wasting rule, which was only there for the first 10 games, of course, as Lakshay said, was not implemented throughout the season. So all teams were not affected the same amount throughout the season. But even in the 10 games that it was affected, there were 148 instances where this was given. Like there could have been a card given or time wasting opportunities, and it was given 4 times. As a yellow card, 3 times to Arsenal players, once to Bruno Fernandes of Man United. But the 3 times to Arsenal
And two
players,
red cards.
2 were red
Two red
cards
cards for
in game states where Arsenal were winning in high pressure games. Brighton at home and City away. So these kind of things really play a part. You can think of Bournemouth away when Howard Webb was at the stadium, kind of signaled something to the VAR.
See,
Those kind of things just trigger you, right? Like,
it just doesn't make any sense because, see, if the referees are going to make the same mistakes over and over again in each and every game,
it's consistent.
are they doing right by themselves? Are the PGMOL doing right by the Premier League, which is supposed to be one of the biggest leagues in the world? They're not. Does FA need to go back and look at their rules and regulations? Do the FA need to go back and look at how the referees are being trained?
Yeah, there
It's
is
just
a lack
unreal.
of competency in general, right? So I remember, Arsene Wenger saying it years ago that there are 2 countries in Europe that have professional referees, England and Italy, and not one English referee will go to the World Cup. And cut forward or fast forward 8 years to the Euros, and every game was officiated perfectly, apart from games that involved English referees. So there definitely is a drop off in standard, and when football is perfected, you're seeing those mistakes show up more and more.
Yeah, I mean, even after VAR comes into play, you're still not being able to communicate properly, like we saw last season, where the Liverpool goal was not given, even though it wasn't. Luis Diaz was in an onside position.
Yeah.
You were just not able to communicate. Now that's that's not an officiating error.
It's a
That's just
competency issue.
communication error.
It's
It's
a
a
competency
competency
issue.
issue.
Yeah, that's true.
How does that work?
And
It
and
just doesn't make any sense.
and we're both saying this. Sure, Arsenal are affected by it, but honestly, if it was if it was consistent and Arsenal were second place, I wouldn't complain. You know, I would be like, you know what, fair enough, as long as all teams are officiated the same way. Now, with that being said, with understanding the context of the season and how Arsenal played, the refereeing decisions, the injuries, and everything, right? Can you rate the season on 10?
I'd say I'd say it was a 7.
Yeah,
I'd
that's about
personally
right.
say 7. It's because we obviously had a few players who did not perform at their best, in the
Yeah,
likes of Odegaard. We've still been waiting to see that breakout season of Martinelli. Just need him to
yeah,
outperform after that breakout season, which hasn't happened for the past 2 or 3 seasons now. Um, Obviously, some positives in the likes of the two young stars coming up in Miles Lewis Kelly and Waneri. Has been amazing defensively. We've been really good. A big shout out to Jakub Kivio coming in the dying end of the season, in the business end of the
right.
season, and just performing his heart out for the club. And this, by the way, if we go back to the summer and see Inter Milan were in for him for like about a 25 million price tag, and Arteta said no, you're not leaving. That was a good decision in
Good decision.
hindsight.
And we didn't
That
miss
was a really
Gabriel at
good
all,
decision.
man. We didn't miss Gabriel at all in
I
that
wouldn't
time.
say that. Yeah, we
I mean,
did miss Gabriel.
I
We
mean, he
did
didn't
miss
miss a
Gabriel
beat.
because he did provide that aerial attacking mindset in the box. And if you see after Gabriel got injured, we did not score as many in from set pieces. That was a big miss, but overall from open play, did not concede. He was so comfortable on the ball. It was just a joy to watch.
Yeah. And, uh, putting the whole season into context, like we've reached this Champions League semi-finals in the second time of playing in the competition after a lot of years out. We reached the League Cup semi-finals as well. We finished second in the Premier League with a threadbare squad. And there are a lot of moments of the season that were very special. Mine was actually watching us win 7-1 live at PSV. Uh, absolutely brilliant day. Crazy day with the away fans. Absolutely loved that. It's a core memory. I wouldn't forget it for life. So yeah, really special season despite not winning anything for me personally. Um, but that was the season, right? And I know we started this by saying last season we really wanted a number 9, and we wanted a lot happening in the summer. And this season, when we're going into the summer, I think I want to break a myth, right? There is a myth that's going around saying Arteta has spent X million euros and he has to win this year, right? And I feel that people don't understand net spend when they talk about this. The fact that he had such a huge wage bill with players who were on high wages, on low value, who could not be offloaded, they had to give them away for free, recycle the squad, all of that. And continuing that trend onto this season, I just made a quick note that Neto, Sterling, Tierney, Jorginho are gone for free. So we've saved on
Marquinhos
wages
as
there.
well from this morning.
Marquinhos and Tavares not for free. It's 4 million for Marquinhos, 7 million for Tavares, which are done. Lokonga, Zinchenko, and Karl Hein are likely to leave. And then there's a question of a couple of the other loan players like Reece Nelson and Fabio Vieira, whether they would leave, right? So this is just players who are going out, and the work that Arsenal have done 80% over the last few years that will result in a positive cash flow this summer. So I need to ask you, like, who else should be on that list of going out? And if you think I am wrong with any of the names, what are they?
See, speaking of speaking of that myth that you were talking about Arteta needing to win something, there's no doubt about that. He needs to win something. That's not a myth.
No,
That's
no.
a
The myth
fact that he
was the
needs
myth
to
was
win.
the myth was
And
the spend, bro. Not like the myth was Arsenal have spent
no,
so
we're not
much,
going to talk.
therefore he needs to win. It's not
Yeah,
because of
it's
how much
not.
he
It's
spent.
not. It's not more about. It's not more about how much he spent. That's why he needs to win. It's more about the time that he's given into the squad and the time that he has been given by the board to win something, and also uh, the number of transfer windows that he's had. Of course, it's not more about the spend. It's more about having his own players. Now, he has had over 10 he has had 10 transfer windows to his name, and he has done the business. He has his own team for the past 2 or 3 years now. And yeah, you may call each and every season that Arsenal are going on the upward trajectory, but for how much more longer? They need to win something. They need to have something to show for this upward trajectory. Otherwise, it won't take long for us to just reach a plateau and just sail on through that plateau like we had been doing during our so-called banter era, where we were just finishing fourth throughout those last few years of Arsene Wenger. It
Well,
won't take long for us to reach that point. And me personally, I wouldn't want that. I want our team to have something to show for it because they have done well. They
bro,
have
like
been on the upward
so
trajectory.
so what I'm trying to say is when you look at 10 transfer windows and when you compare all of that, like look at any club other like who are competing against Arsenal, right? Like Man City, they struggled. They spent 200 million in January. Liverpool, who are not considered big spenders, the season before Klopp left, revamped their entire midfield in one summer. Chelsea spent like a billion every summer, right? Tottenham also like improved their squad depth over like one whole summer. So sure, results might not show for it, but every club, the way they spend, the way they invest is immediate. Man United have spent 700 million under Ten Hag alone, right, in 2 years. So when you consider what other clubs are spending, and you look at what Arsenal are doing in comparison, it's not the same. We're not spending at the same level. We're having to let go of a lot of players, replace them. If you look at last summer as well, great example. It looks like we've spent 100 million, but our net spend was zero or positive, and we actually ended up with a squad that's more threadbare. So, what worries me is what the board is doing with the squad we have and not giving Arteta the players he needs to succeed. Sure, we spent 100 million on Declan Rice, but how many players did we let go? Right? What happened apart from that? Right? Did Edu make the right signings? And I'm not so sure that's true completely. I'm not sure Arteta was given those players. He asked for a striker for in January, he asked for a striker last summer. He was not
Yeah,
given.
he got Havertz, and that was one of the most mind-boggling, or it wasn't more mind-boggling. It was more like a signing out of thin air. And we had such a signing in the season prior to that also in Fabio Vieira, which just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And if you look at it right now, both of these signings haven't performed to that extent that we'd want them to. Yeah, of course, you're talking about net spends and everything. See, for me personally, they are just clickbaits on social media. Everything. Yeah, this team spent 2 billion and they won nothing, or they have a trophy in Chelsea who just won the Conference League. It's nothing. You know how the business needs to perform, and for that you need to make sure you have enough funds. Like, all of these things are just backroom stuff. All of these numbers and figures, they just thrown into the air. It's like, yeah, 500, 600, 700 million. That's just, that wouldn't even be the case in that one particular summer. Maybe a team is going to pay like just 10% of it in the summer, and just defer all of those payments
Sure.
over the few years for those cash flows and everything. That's a completely different side of it.
Sure.
But yeah, overall, when you have to get the headlines, yeah, we have made so much, we have invested that much money. Yeah, we have. And net spends, all understandable, but what people look at is that figure of how much the owners or how much the club have put into a certain player, or how much they have put into one particular summer, and Arsenal still don't have anything to show for it.
Right. So I understand that when you look on a very high level, right, your argument is spot on, right? And when you start diving a bit deeper, you try to ask yourself why that is, right? So you mentioned Fabio Vieira. Fabio Vieira was an Edu signing, not a Mikel signing, right? If you look at Havertz was definitely a Mikel signing. And Havertz, for all his question marks and flaws, was the striker that got Arsenal to the closest they've been to a Premier League title in 20 years. This is just factual. So now, if you look at Arteta's track record in signings, and I'm saying Arteta's because there is a difference between who is vouching for a player and who's bringing a player in, which signing of Arteta, which has cost Arsenal money, so let's say in this world over 20 million, has flopped? I would struggle to think of one. And even if you find one or two names that have flopped over 20 million, it's incredible that it's just one or two names in the last 5-6 years that he's been at Arsenal. Right? So that's kind of what I'm saying about it. So speaking of signings coming in and net spend and all of this, what positions do you think we need to sign this summer? So I'll just quickly rattle off like the positions, not the players.
Um, I'd say the keeper. We need to get a backup keeper. That is starting from the back. I think we need to get a backup keeper. We need a couple of defensive options, because we see Tierney leaving. We see
Zinchenko
Tomiyasu
leaving,
being injured.
Tomiyasu injured.
Zinchenko also, maybe,
Sure.
yes. Midfield, we've already gotten Zubimendi, so I don't think we need anyone over there. And we've got the likes of Waneri coming in. Maybe he'd be able to help out in that position as well. The two other positions in the that we need help in is the left wing side, and the number 9.
Number
We
9.
we need to get a striker in
Okay.
somehow.
We know all the rumors that are floating around, right? So I'm going to ask you a very simple question. Are you Camp Gyökeres or Camp Sesko?
I'm Cap Isaac.
That's not an option, bro. Isaac's
See,
not coming, man.
see, um, my ideal signing would be Isaac,
Sure.
but I have my doubts over both the names that you've just mentioned, in Sesko and in Gyökeres, because if we look at Sesko, my major doubt uh, comes when we speak of Bundesliga players coming into the Premier League and performing, and I don't think there are many players who you'd say have performed in the Premier League coming from Bundesliga. Some of the notable names would be the likes of Havertz, who's on our team. You wouldn't say that he has performed the best ever since he's come in from Bundesliga. The other one is Jadon Sancho. They've just not been able to perform. I don't know whether it's the league. I don't know whether it's the gameplay, but they just haven't performed.
Bro, for every
Uh,
for every Sancho and Havertz in your example, there's a Kevin De Bruyne, there's a Heung-min Song, there's a Firmino, there's a
Yes, but
Gundogan.
if you were to compare it to all of these players, you look at them in De Bruyne. If you're saying De Bruyne went to the Bundesliga after getting some sort of experience in the Premier League. So if you look at Sesko has been there all his life, and before that he has been in Austria, I believe. So playing in those type of leagues, would he be able to do the same in the Premier League? Never know.
So you're
With
leaning towards Gyökeres?
I have my doubts over him as well. Looking at players coming from the Portuguese league,
Yeah,
would
but
they
he's
be
played for
able to
Brighton,
perform?
right? He's had
He had
experience in the
played.
Premier League.
Yeah, he has had the experience in the lower divisions of English football, and he has played at Brighton. Not much, but he still has. So um, he does know the game, and if you look at the numbers, he has been on that trajectory going up, where each season he's played, he has scored more goals than the previous one. Um, I think he'd be able to do a good job. But if it was to pick and choose, for me, it's going to be either, since neither of them are proven Premier League talents. For me, it's going to be either, because both of them have more or less the same type of game. Both of them play the same type of football, and I believe if one was to do well, the other one would do well as well. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah, that's my take on it.
I think we're going from having Merino up top, who is not a striker, to the luxury of two
I
top
personally, I
strikers.
personally wouldn't mind Merino playing up top. After the Madrid game, I was like, yeah, no problem, that's fine. No, but jokes apart. See, we do require two types of players up top. One is that person who'd be able to hold the ball up, who'd be able to act as that target man, that focal point in the box. Especially if we're looking at the way we played this season, where the wingers are coming from the sides and whipping balls in. There was no focal point, which we lacked so much. And the other type of player that we need is that type of a player who'd be able to dart into the box, make those runs in behind. That pacey type of player. See, if we were to look at it, I'd want these two types of players. We've already got one in the form of Merino, who can be that focal point in the
Yeah.
box. The other one, who knows, maybe a Sesko, maybe a Gyökeres. I wouldn't mind. Honestly, I wouldn't mind both of them either. I
Yeah.
like both of them together.
Yeah.
Like
Why not,
that.
right?
I mean, not many people talking about it, but you never know. We might end up getting both.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think it depends on who creates chaos, and I think Sesko creates a bit more chaos, and that's why I'm leaning to him. But again, if you have either of them who are proven goal scorers with the record they've had, perfectly happy with it. I cannot complain. So after a 7 on 10 season, and let's assume that Arsenal sign the five players that you mentioned, or the five positions that you mentioned, and of course, I don't mean a Sterling and a Neto equivalent next season, but actually
Nah,
the right
please God,
players.
no.
Where do you think we are? Like, would you be going into the season as, you know what, we're favorites, this year is our year, if we get the right signings?
See, that's always going to be the hope.
Yeah.
You can't go into the season thinking, yeah, okay, we're gonna finish second or we're gonna finish third. That's always going to be the hope, that we need to win. We need to show. We need to get a trophy. We are the players. We are the team that other teams need to fear, and we need to do anything and everything in our power to go ahead and lift a trophy at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not by lifting a trophy. I'm not saying like maybe an FA Cup or a Carabao Cup. Yeah, those ones, if we do, well and good. But we need to show a Premier League or a Champions League
Yeah.
to show that yes, we are a proper team.
Yeah. I think one thing Arteta has done is he's taken us from that conversation of being in the Europa League to consistently playing against, Real Madrid, PSG, Man City. When we go into those games, right now, I don't think that we're going to get battered. I'm not going so far as to say we're always favorites in those games, but I don't think that we, shrink and close up in those games. And this is we're coming from the same generation of Arsenal fans where we've seen our team lose
10,
consistently away from home, right? Like,
10.
and I'm just happy that we're in the conversation of being one of the best teams in Europe. And I feel with the signings that we make, and I really hope for once Arsenal go ahead and actually make all the signings and are not shot by one or two players. And I think with that, we are going to set ourselves up really well next season. With that being said, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I think this covers a lot of Arsenal, a topic that's dear to both of us for a long time. Would love to have you on the podcast where we talk about what actually happened in the summer and more often as well. So thank you so much for being here.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And yes, we'll see you next time.
See you guys next time.